Time has gone 8 minutes after the hour, 6 o'clock, and it's a very good evening to you and welcome to this evening's broadcast. And it's brought to you courtesy of Government Communication and Information System, the GCIS, alongside the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. My name is Karabalans By the way, this is our first show for the year 2016, and hopefully you have had an awesome 2015 and looking forward to the rest of this year 2016, and all blessings and all open doors for this year, and may everything that you wish for and everything that you work hard for just come out and turn to gold. We really wish that for you. This evening around, we're going to be chatting to the Deputy Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development, Deputy Minister John Jeffrey, but he's not all by himself this evening really. He's accompanied by Chairperson of the South African Human Rights Commission, that's Advocate Mabele Lawrence Mushwana, and as well as the Chairperson of the Commission for Gender Equality, Mr. Mfanozelwe Shozi. All these three gentlemen are in the studio this evening. Why? Because we're going to be talking about Equality Acts, or the codes as such, and we're looking forward to your participation on this evening's show. And by the way, if you want to be in touch with us, it's all very easy. It's 0800 142 446. That's 0800 142 446. That line is a toll-free line if you're calling from a landline. Otherwise, if you're going to be calling us from a cell phone, you're more than welcome to do that, and we'll take your details down and call you back as soon as we can. So Equality Courts or Equality Act, and go to 0800 142 446 0800 142 446. o tebosa de feselo ha ile gore o shumisha mogala wa gago wa Telkom, e le gore mhlomongwe o shumisha sela thekeng sa gago, o ka re leletša tla tše nomoro tša gago fase o mmera go founela ka mamorago. So there we go. So this evening we're going to be talking about, and by the way, just before I say this evening we're going to be talking about what issues, let me just let you know that you can speak to us in any language of your choice. Okay, so if you're speaking any of the Nguni languages, any of the Sesotho languages, English, Afrikaans, you're more than welcome to call in those languages, and we'll try to help you to the best of our ability in terms of the questions that you might be having this evening. We're going to be trying to create public awareness on the equality courts this evening. That's one of our goals. We're going to try to also highlight the successes of the equality courts since its inception. How about we highlight the departmental efforts in promoting the equality courts as well, and as well finally, but last but not least, to highlight the role of the Chapter 9 institutions in promoting and protecting human rights issues in South Africa. So let's talk. What are we waiting for? Let me start by greeting our guest this evening. I'm going to start with you, Deputy Minister. Thank you so much. It is the third time, and I'm going to say this again. I've said this twice already, and he put a smile on his face as I say this. You always promise to come back, and you always do. And the last time when you walked out, you said, I'm going to come back. And I thought that maybe not, because 2015 is heading towards the... But here you are. Welcome, Deputy Minister.
Thanks very much. It's nice to be back, and good evening to everybody listening in.
It's always good to have you in the studio with us, DM. I really appreciate that. As well as Advocate Mushwana, somebody that I'm having for the first time. What a privilege, and I'm pretty excited to have you with us as well. Good evening to you, sir.
Good evening, and thank you for inviting us for the first time. This is an opportunity never to be missed.
There we go. And Chairperson of the Commission for Gender Equality, I'm talking about Mr. Mfanozelwe Shozi. Mr. Shozi, you've been here as well. It looks like you guys love this place, and you must call it home. Next time when you come back, you must say, I'm going home instead of going to GCIS. Welcome to you as well, sir.
Well, good morning. Thank you very much for inviting us to be part of the show. And we'll definitely call it home.
Absolutely. There we go. All right. Before we waste any further time, let's get into the gist of things. We're talking about the Equality Courts, or the Equality Act, this evening. Somebody might be hearing this for the first time. They don't know what we're talking about. And let's just break it down before we get into the deeper things that are related to Equality Act. What is the Equality Act or Equality Courts, Deputy Minister?
Look, the starting point really is the Constitution, and the the equality clause in the Constitution, and basically there's legislation that needed to be, and the equality clause is everybody is equal before the law and has the right to equal protection and benefit of the law. And there was legislation that needed to be passed to give effect to that right. And that legislation is the Promotion of Equality and Prevention of Unfair Discrimination Act. And that act basically provides that if you feel that your right to equality has been violated, that you've been discriminated against, then you can go to an equality court. And an equality court is any high court, and then certain magistrates courts, but basically magistrates courts across the country have also been designated as equality courts. It's now also being extended to the middle layer of courts, the regional courts. There was a law passed by Parliament last year which came into effect last week, which provides that regional courts can also be equality courts, and they are there to hear disputes where people complain that their rights, they've been discriminated against, basically.
And let's talk about some of the cases that are heard within these courts, within the equality courts. Maybe you want to jump in there, Mr. Mushwana?
Thank you. The cases that are normally brought before the equality case, these are cases that relate to equality, and of course cases that relate to racism, which, as we all know, has recently become very topical, and because they fall under the realm of hate speech. These are the cases that can be taken there. There are also cases that deals with harassment of any nature, and these are the cases that you can take before the equality court.
There was a show where we spoke about a type of court where people don't need legal representation earlier in or just the last part of 2015. And I wonder, in these courts, in the equality courts, when as far as legal representation is concerned, does one need legal representation, and what are the procedures that are undertaken within these courts? Yes, Mr. Mchwana, you can jump in.
Yes, yeah. To start with, you don't need a lawyer to go to the equality court. But we have seen in South Africa, people do come with their legal representatives, which we did not prevent them.
Right.
But the reason why they are equality court was precisely to make those courts accessible to people who don't have the necessary resources, particularly the most vulnerable grouping. So it's free, and what you need to do, for instance, it's if you have suffered harassment, hate speech, you are free to go to any magistrate's offices, as the minister have indicated that all magistrates court and now the regional court, and of course our high courts are equality court. We are free to go there to approach a clerk of the court who will be there to assist you in terms of what you need to do. But you do need to have sufficient information when you approach the court. They will give you a form which you'll complete and sign, and they will tell you how to move forward from there.
0800 142 446. That's 0800 142 446. We'd like to hear from you if you're listening in, and if you've just joined us, welcome to it. This is our first show of the year 2016. Let's Talk Justice show, brought to you courtesy of the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development alongside the Government Communication and Information System. My name is Karabalans. I'm glad to be in your company this evening. We're chatting to Deputy Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development, Deputy Minister John Jeffrey, as well as the Chairperson of the South African Human Rights Commission, Advocate Mabedle Mushwana, as well as the Chairperson of the Commission for Gender Equality, Ubab Shores, is in the studio as well, and we're happy to have them. You can engage with us via Twitter as well. Our Twitter handle has never changed. It's still the same as it was in 2015, at DOJCD_ZA, at DOJCD_ZA, and you can join the hashtag Let's Talk Justice conversation on our social media as well. Facebook, the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. So get us there, and we would like to hear from you. 0800 142 446. We're talking about the equality courts, the promotion thereof. All right, let's say somebody has approached the courts. In terms of procedures, maybe you want to jump in there. So, Mr. Shozi, the procedures that one can expect in these courts, what are we looking at? What in terms of is there a hearing that takes place? How does it unfold when you get to these courts?
As a chairperson of the Human Rights Commission is expected that you need to fill in a form, and in some other cases you'll find that the people are going to approach the Commission for Gender Equality or the Human Rights Commission, and the Human Rights Commission and the Gender Commission will assess whether this matter needs to be actually heard by the Equality Court, and therefore we refer these matters to the Equality Court, but we assist the complainants, for example, to actually take these matters to the Equality Court, and therefore they have to actually fill in the form from these particular courts and so on. They have to actually assess whether the matter that has been brought to the court really fit the jurisdiction of the Equality Court, and therefore a hearing, if they decide, the magistrate, whoever decides, then the hearing would be called. Some witnesses might also be called as well, just to actually have an engagement around those issues, as has been explained earlier on, that legal representative is not allowed. It's allowed, but people actually are also free to actually present their own case in this particular courts. Then don't need a lawyer to really represent you. But sometimes the lawyers will actually come and actually force their way through and so on, and sometimes want to treat the Equality Court as a normal court, which is because this is supposed to be an easy way of actually accessing justice and actually making sure that even the disadvantaged communities are able to actually access and actually get assisted in terms of whatever they've actually complained about. So in terms of the procedures, those are some of the procedures that the court will need to actually follow.
All right. Deputy Minister, when we started talking, you mentioned a couple of phrases that I would like to go back to, maybe just to dissect those, that the listeners can actually have an understanding of what we're talking about. You spoke about unfair discrimination and hate speech. There was a word that came out again, harassment, which I heard there. Maybe let's talk about those three quickly. And I wonder, if we're talking about unfair discrimination, what exactly are we referring to?
I'd again want to go back to the Constitution, which says everyone is equal before the law and has the right to equal protection and benefit of the law. And that the state may not unfairly discriminate directly or indirectly against anyone on any one or more grounds, including race, gender, sex, pregnancy, marital status, ethnic or social origin, color, sexual orientation, age, disability, religion, conscience, belief, culture, language, and birth. And then no person, that's the state, no person, this is now civil society, may unfairly discriminate directly or indirectly against anyone on one or more of the grounds that I listed above. And national legislation, that's the Papuda Act. However, the Constitution also does allow, in terms of the unequal past that we come from, there must be legislation, and the phrase is to promote the achievement of equality, legislative and other measures designed to protect or advance persons or categories of persons disadvantaged by unfair discrimination may be taken. So it is important to realize that policies of affirmative action are legitimate in terms of the Constitution. But it basically would be discrimination on any of those grounds that I have mentioned. And if you feel you've been discriminated against, that's the unfair discrimination aspect. Then you can approach the Equality Court. Right. So you are some of the cases from a sexual orientation point of view. You're a gay couple and you are refused access to a guest house because they don't like gay, or they say they're Christian and they don't want gay people there, that matter can be taken to the Equality Court. You feel you're being discriminated against on the basis of gender because you're a woman, that can go there. You feel you're being discriminated against on the basis of race, the same thing. Obviously, you've got to show that's the real basis.
Right.
So that's basically the unfair discrimination. The hate speech aspect is defined in the Act, and it's basically just getting the section. But if my colleagues in the studio are more familiar.
Maybe as you're trying to gather that, DM, I'll tell you what we're going to do. Let's take a caller quickly from Pretoria, and this is Anonymous calling all the way from Pretoria. Good evening to you, Anonymous. Anonymous from Pretoria, good evening to you.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very well, and yourself?
I'm very well, thank you. Hello to your guest as well.
Thank you so much for calling in.
Quick question. I just want to ask here, I'm going to divert a little bit. But I felt that I was discriminated because of a criminal record that I have, which was due to a contempt of court, the fact that I didn't attend court when I was supposed to. So I got a job with one of the government departments, but I was later told that I can't have the job anymore because I had that criminal record. So I just want to find out if could that be part of being discriminated or what?
All right, we're going to hear from that. Thank you so much for calling in, Anonymous. We'd really appreciate your caller. All right, 0800 142 446. I beg your pardon, 0800 142 446. That's the one. We're going to take one more caller. Okay, it looks like we're going to take one more caller. We do have a call on the line. It's a very good evening to you, caller. What is your name? Where are you calling from? Babongani unjani?
Yaphila njani baba?
Ngiyabonga baba. Umbuzo wakho uthini?
Nginenkinga yawo lamara yenqoqa ngazi ngalimala. 1992 ne.
All right.
Ngaba ne drop foot.
Sorry, waba nani futhi?
Net drop foot.
Okay.
Should bangifaka insimbi 1993 enyaweni. L steel.
Yeah.
2008 ngaphinde ngalimala.
Yeah.
Waba nebullet elokha emva kwedolo.
Okay.
Azange iphume. So since from then ngangena esibhedlela 2018 bangenza ama-operation ayi-3 azange bakhiphe ibullet. Inyawo lami lalokha idolo lisagolile. I can't receive grant. Angisakwazi ngangisebenza njengo-driver layifini yami. Ayikho omunye umsebenzi engawenza. Angisakwazi konke abantwana, angisakwazi kwenza ngixakekile. I've been running up to SASSA day and night from 2010. Lento yangi-affecta ngoba sengize ngibona isibhedlela isesangiqalisa, yabona.
Okay. So, Uncle Babongani, is it that your problem, is it coming from the fact that you're applying perhaps for jobs and now are we told imisebenzi ngoba of because of your state of health?
Angisakhoni inyawo lami lilimele, I can't drive anymore.
Yeah, but is it
my leg is no more, alikwazi ukugoba, alisebenzi, my toes are not working.
All right.
Alisasebenzi total.
But what I'm asking, Oguti, is it you that's taken that decision, Oguti, you know what, you're having a bit of a problem, so therefore you can't work? Or is it that you're applying for jobs and you are getting told that, no, we can't give you snags of the state of your health?
Awukho umsebenzi engathi ngawu-applyela ngaphandle kokudriver. I've been applying to SASSA only.
Okay. I tell you what, I think that will fall under the Department of Social Development. Or maybe, would you like to jump in? Just hold on for me, Bongani. I think Ubab Mushwana would like to jump in maybe there and say something to you. Bob Mushwana?
Yes, I think if you are completely disabled, as you're correctly pointing out that the Department of Social Development will be the right to be approached, I think you can go and make an application for a disability grant and they will make an assessment. And if I may check, when you got injured, was it during your employment, course and scope of your employment?
I was working as an armed guard during that time, 1992.
Or you were working for somebody? You were injured while on duty.
I was working as an armed guard in 1992 at a Trico security company.
And did they pay you for the workman's compensation?
They paid me for the workman's compensation.
And that was not enough.
In fact, the problem went when during 2008.
Yeah, I think it will still be better to approach the Department of Social Welfare to make an application, and then if you have any challenge, I mean, you can approach any of our offices in the way we are in the provinces, and then just to assist you to access the Department of Social Development.
Babongana, I think what's best because
I able to approach you because I've been since from 2010 to those offices. The disability, what they can't help me. That is why I'm approaching you.
Okay, Babongani, let's do this, ne? And we're definitely going to try to help you there. We have had people from the Department of Social Development visiting us in the past in this show. We do have their contact details. Now, you've been going there for yourself and you're not getting any luck. What we are going to do, we are going to call the department from our side. We'll try to get somebody to call you and have a one-on-one with you so you can actually just dissect your problems with them on a one-on-one basis. And maybe this time around... Aniva.
We just say, please, Karabo, I need that help.
Yeah, I think that will be the best, Bongani, because if you're not that because we're calling them, they will act. I don't know what the background is, but I think once we alert them that you've been trying for a couple of times and you're not having luck, the situation will be dealt with actually.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Bongani from Soweto calling in. I really appreciate it. Let's go to Lephalale. The last time I was in Lephalale, it was like 45 degrees, and my bottle of water, it felt like it was coming from a hot tub. A breezer from Lephalale. Breezer Lephalale. Okay, Breezer's not there. All right, we kept Breezer holding on for a bit too long, and he hung up. I apologize for that, Breezer. If you can call in, or we'll try to call you back. 0800 142 446. That's 0800 142 446. This is the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development's show called Live Your Rights. Let's Talk Justice, and it's the first one for this year, 2016. DM, you were trying to gather some information when it comes to the issue of hate speech.
Hate speech, yes, just Section 10 of the Act. There were those prohibited grounds that I mentioned, and the requirements is that, the section is no person may publish, propagate, advocate, or communicate words based on one or more of the prohibited grounds. That I mentioned those earlier, against any person that could reasonably be construed to demonstrate a clear intention to A, be hurtful, B, be harmful or incite harm, C, promote or propagate hatred. So that's what would make up hate speech in terms of that act.
We've seen quite a number of incidents happening recently, DM, with the issues that we've been having. Has any of those matters were they dealt with, by the equality courts?
Look, I think the chairpersons of the two commissions can maybe speak about specific cases that they may be aware of. I understand that I think somebody did take the Penny Sparrow matter up with an equality court, but I speak under correction. But just in terms of the statistics that I've got, the bulk of the bulk of the type of equality court matters, 46% of the cases last year that were registered were unfair discrimination, and 36% related to hate speech.
Right. Okay. It looks like we've got Breezer back on the line. Let's take Breezer quickly from Lephalale. Good evening to you, Breezer. Apologize for having kept you holding for a bit too long. Good evening to you.
Good evening, Karabo. How are you?
I'm very well, and yourself, my brother?
I'm all right, man. Karabo, I have two questions. Why honestly the considering at the level like that on a national, as a national spokesperson? Then I am so. Iba hore dilo tse o le di bolelang tseo a re tse gore di a direga or whatever ka re mo rena mo magaeng mo like bo a botleleka re mo le phalale ga di dire dilo tse tsa gore no you can go to court and then wa bolela ka 1 2 3 and all this dilo tse ga di dire so re tshwanetse re dire yang botsa that minister a re botse gore what to do and then re kgone go itse gore no re tshwanetse re dire yang ka gore le bolela dilo tse di alright but ke tsa molao tsa constitutional of South Africa but yaanong so these things are not happening in our rural areas you see because re na le di magistrate court and a lot of them plenty of them more the rural areas and are many corruption you see that happens here there is people who they are against the mayor, people are against me, people are against whatever, you see. Then so what to do about those things? And then we are trying to claim the locating like Utswana Renali Kamole Palale Renali extension 4 ya marapo implication. Sala una le mutu la sala mutu ntueo mama hayo tokope sala claim auro na unyesi mutu bidiwa sibonjila. Ai sala kile bolela la kayona still something very misala dirile dilo tsa ba reng di eviction letter or bata mo direla di eviction letter. Still we are still waiting and then we pay the lawyer.
Yeah. All right.
And then so what to do about this because mama hae anu ora hat o tlhokofala bola ke pele ya ngwana hae ke se bongile then o tlhokofetse then ma ke nkaba dibetso then ke Doris then re claimile dilo tseo then ona ke kale se re tswala mtho up to 9 to 10 months then what to do as a national spokesperson.
All right.
Tell the minister I need the answer.
Okay. No, he's listening.
Yes.
He's definitely listening, and I will just translate your matter to him. But thank you. Is that the only you said you've got two? That was the one. What's the other question that you're having?
Yeah, the second one is the law, the according how the minister explained or molao o bereka yang. Then abo mo rural ya rena mo au berekiswi ka tselenseng ya lo bereka ka re kwena karabo re kwena manna wa understand ne and so what to do about that you see.
Okay, well, thank you so much, please. I really appreciate your call, and we'll definitely try to revert your question and see how we can help you. Thank you so much for that. Breeze are calling all the way from Lephalale. Let's go all the way to Cape Town. Let's speak to Mhleli. Mhleli in Cape Town. Good evening to you, Mhleli.
All right.
Mhleli? Okay, let's try to see if we've got Mhleli on the line. Good evening to you, Mhleli.
Molweni njani?
Siyaphila njani data?
Alright. Ngicela ukubuza mna ndikoka ityala be-culture court from 2010, 2011, 2012 for 3 years. Umthuthisa kancane ukuphakama athi akaziva right for uthetha namhlanje. Uma ngiyabuza wathi next date libe ibhalwe next date le. Libe igqwatha ke ndiliqashileyo libe lifuna ubhatala for just lanto leya. I-question le khona njengoba kuthiwa nje apha ecourt kuyarekhordwa for everything. Ingaba abantu ababajongayo bona uba do they work right or not abayiboni laa nto yenzekayo phaa because apha kwezi court zabantu bamnyama ikhona iproblem ekhoyo apho khona nothi abantu bakuthi wena if wena uyale lawyer ufanele ukuthi ityala lithatha i-long term ende ibhatala imali okanye nto efika koma-10,000 ibhatalana nento ende okoko icase postpone for almost unyaka ndaye ndapha ngenyini last time ndiconducta uministry chief Khatebe on air olu hlobo lalela ndithetha ndambuza uba umntu uyakwazi nawo ityala lithatha ixesha engakanani because ndangekabekwa tyala for almost 1.5 years. Nangoku i-question nam phayana ekhothi njengoba kuthiwa yonke into nje iyarekhodwa ingaba akekho umntu uyi-supervisor ojongayo umsekelo enokunika onokugqibela esikoleni usuprincipal unayo umhlolo ojongayo into yakhe uba ingaba uprincipal usijongile umsebenzi wetishara kakuhle akho nto iqhubekayo napha ekhothi kwenzeka ntoni kwaye kusenzeka olaa hlobo. Enkosi.
Siyabulela tata Mhleli from Cape Town. Sivuyile from Phoenix. Good evening to you. Sivuyile, Phoenix. Okay, we've lost Sivuyile, babe. All right, let's move on with our questions. And Breezer came in a bit too strong there. A little bit strong there, Breezer. Quite concerned about what is happening in the rural areas. I think the one aspect that he spoke about, Breezer, was the aspect of exposure to information or education as far as, I beg your pardon, the law is concerned, especially in the rural areas. Maybe let's start there. Let's start by asking the question that what is the department doing as far as teaching those who are living in far-fetched areas, like rural areas, for instance, where Breeze is coming from, Kolepalad, and areas like that. What is the department doing, DM, in terms of just bringing people up to speed and educating them about the Constitution of South Africa?
There's quite an extensive constitutional education program which we're involved in, and we're working with other government departments, with the other with the Chapter 9s, particularly the Human Rights Commission, and with civil society. So there is quite an extensive program. Obviously, these radio programs are one part of that, but one can always do more.
Mm-hmm. And he was quite worried about the issue of the application of the law depending on who you are. I suspect that he's speaking about a situation where it looks like you have to be somebody in the community to be heard. When you are in the lower spheres in the community, chances of the law fighting for you is almost non-existent. I think he was referring to that whole thing that when people talk, they talk about if you don't have money or if you're not known, no one will hear you, or the law is not going to come, or justice is not going to be effective in your life. With that type of thing, how could you respond to that, DM?
Well, it's the same law that applies to everybody. And if you look at some of the cases, it doesn't matter if how important you are in society, everybody is subject to the law. With the equality courts, as Chairperson Mushwana had said, you don't need a lawyer. Mm-hmm. You can be assisted without a lawyer. So I think that perception needs to be tackled. Everybody is equal before the law. If you bring a case before an equality court, it doesn't matter who you're bringing that case against. That case should be dealt with.
All right. Clearly wanted to find out, you want to jump in there?
Yes, maybe it will also touch a little bit on Mhleli. I just wanted to add to what the Deputy Minister has said in respect of saying, the courts, do not finalize cases in time. Much as Chapter 9 institutions, we don't have the jurisdiction or the power to deal with court matters. But if there are reasons to believe that there is a deliberate delay in finalizing the case, mm-hmm. then such an individual, like the caller from Lephalale and the caller from Khayelitsha, where they see that there is indeed a delay, nothing stops them from going to the public protector or go to the Human Rights Commission, particularly if they suspect there is corruption, like what is saying the caller from Khayelitsha. They can approach the public protector to say, look, my case has been postponed so many times. As we know, justice delayed is justice denied. Mm-hmm. So on that basis, they will be able to intervene and assist. And finally, both the Gender Commission and our commission, we do have outreach officials in each of our offices in the provinces who go out to also teach people about the work we are doing, how to approach ourselves. But it's good to know that Lephalale has such a problem. I know we've done a lot of work around Lephalale, but if there is this matter, then we'll welcome if we can report it.
All right. Babchozi, would you like to jump in there as well?
No, I just wanted to emphasize the point, and I think they've made a point about having outreach officers in the rural areas where we educate communities around a number of issues. For example, the PEPUDA, Section 8 of the Act deals with the prohibition of unfair treatment on the grounds of gender. So they actually dissect that to include gender-based violence, female mutilation, issues of property, inheritance, and so on. Right. So if communities have problems, or more especially women have problems around those issues, and they don't have money to go to the higher court, they can still refer these matters to the Equality Court so that the Equality Court could deal with these issues. And they can also refer those issues to us if they need assistance, to the Commission for Gender Equality, to the Human Rights Commission, to assist them with this. For example, Mpumalanga, a province, is one province where the issues of estates are really, really problematic, and KZN, Limpopo, and the Eastern Cape.
Yeah.
So for example, more women, they go to court and they don't have money to actually pay lawyers, and therefore there's a one avenue that they can use to actually assist them to actually get what they're actually looking for. So this act is actually user friendly to disadvantaged communities.
Time is gone 17 just before 7 o'clock. DM, we're gonna talk about that issue of contempt of court.
Yeah. Can I just ask though on the matter we've been discussing? I think it was from Breeza and Mhleli, but hopefully the backup staff got their numbers. But I would like to know the detail of the specific, if there are specific cases that they're complaining about that took too long. I'd like to know the details so we can follow up and find out what had happened.
Okay, Breeza, be on standby. You're gonna be getting a call from the minister's office. More details are needed on those two issues that you were talking about. We'd like to get into detail about them and just to see how we can actually resolve that. So be on standby, Breeza. You will be receiving a call from our officers here. All right, we're going to be talking about that issue where a lady called in, anonymous called in, spoke about being discriminated against because of a criminal record, contempt of court. We'll touch on that one just now shortly. I'll tell you why, because I would like to take Sivuile from Phoenix just before Sivuile go. Sivuile, Phoenix, good evening to you.
Yes, good evening. How are you, sir?
I'm very well, and yourself? What is your question, sir?
Yeah, I would like to know that around here in Phoenix and Otongati, we've got a huge problem between the blacks and Indians, which are discriminating, especially when we on the job industry and all. They used to pay inequality, so which that is not correct, because the equality, I think it is falling under the human rights. But now I would like to know what is the solubility between those two issues, because we all facing with that problem as black people.
Thank you so much, Sivuile, Phoenix. I really appreciate it. Let's go to Muhlatupa. Muhlatupa, good evening to you. Muhlatupa. Hey, putso a wereng.
So ke ne ke batla ho tseba hore ko re ka malating teng tsa ka malating ha ile hore ne ke nwa ka malating o wa kana o bua batho hantle haholo molekaneng wa hae na e tla thusahala jwang hanka ka ya mono ho Equality Act le putsengwe ya ka ya bobedi ke ne ke botsa hore na e sebetsa hantle jwalo ka lekgotla la dinyewe ha ile hore motho o mong ke nyenwa o ntebeditse hampe ke ya mane ke etsa dikopo tseno ke tlatsa diforomo e bang o fumana o le molato o ntebeditse hampe o tlo a hlolwa kapa gona le e tlo etsahala mo ke batla o tseba sela mo mosontseng.
Thank you so much there, Muhlatupa. I really appreciate it. Appreciate your questions as well as Sivuile. All right, we'll go to those two callers quickly. Let's deal with this one. I'm sure Anonymous is waiting to hear the response on the one that's got to deal with her discrimination. She says she's been discriminated against because of the criminal record that she has, and I'm glad that she gave us a bit of a background in terms of what happened there. Apparently, she had to appear in court. She didn't, which is contempt of court. She applies for a job. She gets the job, but in the process of the appointment, she gets told that she cannot secure that post because she's got a criminal record. When they look back, they find that, or they found that she was in contempt of court. Could that be discrimination? Maybe let's start there.
Look, it's an interesting point, but remember that the restriction is not against discrimination. It is specifically against unfair discrimination. So the question is it unfair to, and it's not just the state, it's also the private sector, to not give jobs to people if they have criminal records? That's really the question to be looked at. I don't know how long ago she had this conviction, but if 10 years have passed for minor offences where you weren't sent to jail without the option of a fine, and the fine wasn't too high, you can get the record expunged after 10 years have passed. 5 years if you were a child under 18 when you were when you committed the offence or were convicted. So that's an option, but it's an interesting question. I mean, it's something that Anonymous may want to take up with the Human Rights Commission. Just also to specify that both the Human Rights Commission and the Gender Commission are there to are required to assist people with equality matters. So who was phoning from Sivuyile from Phoenix. If there's racial discrimination, they should go to an equality court, but they may want to go for assistance to particularly the Human Rights Commission, who have an office in Durban, for assistance with the matter. But yeah, I currently, I think the state and other employees obviously feel that people who have criminal records shouldn't be employed in certain jobs. I don't think it's all. The question is that unfair discrimination, and that's something that Anonymous may want to take further. And I would suggest she goes to the Human Rights Commission if she wants them to assist. On that.
Well, Mr. Mushwana, what is your take on that? What's your response on that, better?
Yeah, I think we'll respond better when we know the details of this matter, because then you'll be able to make an assessment in terms of when did it happen, how old that person was, and how serious. We already know that it is not necessarily such a serious matter, but I think it would be better if you give them our number so that they can give us more details
in terms of what transpired. So that we can get more detail, give an advice whether or not to go for somebody to assist her to have that criminal record expunged, if there is that possibility. We'll definitely do that. Steg Lindy, we're calling all the way from Inanda. Lindy, we.
Yebo.
Kunjani sis?
Ngiyaphila.
Umbuzo wakho uthini?
Anginambuzo mina ngingisithi ngisiza kuyona engihluphayo emoyeni wami.
Sislindiwe, anguva. Can you speak a little bit louder for me? Anguzwa sisami.
Ngithi kunenkinga engifuna ningixazululele yona manje ingiphethe kabuhlungu emoyeni wami.
Okay.
Ichaze sisiwami inkinga yakho.
Okay, ungafuna ukukhuluma ngayo lapha emsakazweni, or would you like somebody akufonele privately?
Ngiyafisa ukukhipha umsakazo kodwa ngathi ngiqala ngixoxa private over kakhulu.
Okay, we'll definitely do that. Sis Lindy, we've got your numbers. I suspected it's one that we. I just had a feeling that we shouldn't take that one on air, really. Sis Lindy, don't worry. We'll give you a call and we'll talk about it off air. Thank you so much for that. 0800-142-446. 10 minutes just before the hour, 7 o'clock, and you're listening to a live broadcast coming to you live from our studios here in Hatfield in Pretoria. If you want to be in touch with us, that telephone number is going to be quite handy. 0800-142-446. Facebook and Twitter, you're more than welcome. Facebook, it is the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, and on Twitter we at DOJCD_ZA, going American there for a bit, with a ZA. DOJCD_ZA. Gabona Ndateshos, you would like to say something quickly there?
No, there was an issue raised by Sivuyile from Tongata around the issue of discrimination between blacks and Indians, on African and Indians, and I think as much as we need to take these matters to the Gender Commission, the Equality Court, the Human Rights Commission, I think there's a bigger debate that needs to happen in communities around issues of social cohesion, and different stakeholders, the churches, the community organizations need to take part in terms of ensuring that there's integration at that particular level. And I think it's something that, and I think maybe as organizations, not only government, but civil society organizations and community structures needs to actually deal with these matters on the ground, so that at least we assist government, we assist the communities to actually deal with these particular issues. But I don't think that the legislation only assists us if we take these matters to Equality Court. We must also be able to deal with these issues at the community level, educate one another, and make sure that we are able to actually deal with our own issues. Because if you go to Phoenix, Africans and Indians, they live side by side, and Chatsworth and so on. So it's important for these communities to come together. There is even a bridge city there where the government is trying to bridge the two communities so that they can be able to actually dialogue and talk about some of these issues. And I think it's also important. Employers as well must also deal with the issues of discrimination or around this particular, so that they're able to actually employ people from different races and so on, so that at least we are not actually fueling some of these things that are actually seeing in the communities.
All right, but when it comes to issue of equal pay for equal jobs, what Sivuyile has actually explained to us, does that constitute as discrimination in any sort?
It does. It definitely does. It's unfair discrimination, and it sometimes happen on women who are also underpaid.
Right.
They're doing the same work as men, and also happen across races as well. It really does, and that's why what we've been struggling for, to ensure that Africans and whites and everybody who are doing the same job must also be paid the same. Therefore, it amounts to unfair discrimination.
All right, Mhlatup, I'm coming to your question. Really, I've just got a couple of listeners that I don't want them to be holding on for a bit too long there. Let's go to Lydia from Mahikeng. Lydia Mafikeng.
How are you?
I'm good, and you, Lydia? Puto how are you?
Yes, happy New Year,
Okay, happy New Year, Mewak.
Yes. Yeah, today. Thing as one in short hela kore. Nakishile rekarabo like Loyana. Everything like mon fatimoni yana ka sheba ke re bue ka na counter by like our constitution ya South Africa. So what is happening like in terms of remote department of justice so what is happening is abutaka because of our constitution now we are gonna South Africa. Why our reason is because it's too much based on religion and then highly based on religion and then not in spirituality because people can see all those things that happen in most South Africa. They are too much physical. Really based for we need even spiritually, and then how can Sheba religion is like into the religion. Most South Africa we are so many barking Russians. So if you are so many so what is like, okay, our constitution but we must be wise more South Africa like South Africa from Khan. So because everything we must be one. Our oneness is killing us. Not to say our oneness is killing us. Why I'm saying like that is because now which is not going to work at all.
All right. Okay, Auslie, I think I've got the gist of what you're trying to put forward to us. Thank you so much for your call. I have actually compressed your question, and I will ask it to the gentleman in the studio. But let's go to Anonymous in Johannesburg. There, I'm just trying to rush time, gentlemen. Anonymous in Joburg. Good evening to you, Anonymous. Okay, Sandula, Simfage Bondin. Anonymous in Joburg. Let me try one more time. Anonymous in Joburg. Anonymous. Okay, okay, Samyeg. Okay, maybe let me work backwards quickly. Lydia, I think Lydia's question, if I want to compress it nicely and maybe just just to help her to make it short, let's maybe ask this: the spiritual institutions' roles, their role in terms of social cohesion, as a department. How is the relationship there? Are we working with any of these spiritual institutions in terms of making sure that there is social cohesion in South Africa?
I'm not aware of specific programs with the Department of Justice. There are programs with other sections of government. So religious organizations are extremely involved in the moral regeneration movement. Social cohesion's mainly the responsibility of the Department of Arts and Culture, so there may be work being done there. But definitely religious organizations have a very important role to play with regard to social cohesion.
Mm-hmm. All right, and let's go to Mhlatup. I wanted to find out his problem is, he explains that a couple living together, let me put it that way, one is insulting the other, calling them names and so forth. he wants to know if this matter can number one, can this matter be taken to the Equality Court? Number one. Number two, if the perpetrator could be found guilty, what would some of the sentences be? What could the resolution be in a case like that, where somebody has insulted the other one and called them names, and they found guilty of having done that? Maybe you can explain that, Bamushwana.
Thank you. I think you need more detail. We cannot predetermine what the sentence is going to be without knowing exactly what is the insult, what did they say. But it's a matter which, if he feels discomfortable around it, he can take that matter to us as the Human Rights Commission, where we'll make an assessment whether or not it's a matter that can be taken to court, because it falls within harassment, as we have indicated, that those are the classification, or it's hurtful to them. So we need more details in order to make an assessment, and then we'll be able to tell him whether or not the matter can be taken to court and what are the possible sanctions that may follow.
Right. 0800 142 446. That's 0800 142 446. If you want to be in touch with us here in the studio, we will be taking your calls. I think we've got about 6 minutes to go before we say goodbye. And maybe before we do that, coming from the gender equality's point of view, and this is where I would like Mr. Shozi to jump in there. Issues of harassment. Maybe let's just explain what harassment is before we actually even jump into some of the issues that are relating to that. Mr. Shozi, when we're talking about harassment, exactly what are we talking about?
It depends. We have different types of harassment. There's sexual harassment. Sometimes we'll find what people call stalking. So there's different types of harassment. But most of the cases that we actually, even that harassment is not sexual. Sometimes even in terms of this act as well, you'll find that there's even harassment in relation to the information that you use, and sometimes it's harassment in terms of you send pictures to people and so on. So there's a variety and types of harassment. But most of the cases that we deal with at the Gender Commission, for example, are cases that relate to sexual harassment. Mm-hmm. And we take those to the Equality Court, and sometimes it's severe. We also take them to the main courts. Mm-hmm. So what is also critical as well is that issues of harassment as well as sexual harassment, the CCMA has also been given powers as well to deal with some of those issues that relates to the labor issues that happen outside the labor issues. As the Gender Commission will also deal with those, but also the listeners at home, they could also take those issues to the Gender Commission, to the Equality Court, for those issues to be actually dealt with at that particular level.
Right. Let's go to Ndomfuti from Ngutu. Ndomfuti, you are our last caller this evening. Let's hear from you. Good evening to you, Ndomfuti. Kunjani sesam? Ngizocela siswami ukukhulumele phezulu, angikuzwa.
Ithi mina ngabhalisa indlu endaweni yaseNquthu kodwa ke ngiyithole kodwa ngingasebenza.
Bathi ungeke uyithole.
Yebo.
Bake bakuchazela why ungeke uyithole indlu.
Abazane bachaze ngathi makuba ubutwani ba uyagula vele ukhubazekile bathi ngeke ayithole nayo.
Okay, all right. Okay, sisintomfuthi ngicela uzolalela umsakazeni siphendule lo mbuzo wakho ne?
Okay.
All right. Okay, there's another one there. This lady is complaining that she's applied for a house, but because of a disability that she's living with, she's been told that she cannot get a house. That's what she's telling us. That's Josie?
No, I think Section 8 of people there as well. I think it's important. We need to actually establish the facts as well. But nobody's actually allowed to discriminate on the basis of disability and not on the basis of gender. And Section 8, subsection H indicates that women and everybody else is actually expected to actually access services. And I think the caller could actually go to the Human Rights Commission or the Gender Commission and see whether we can assist in relation to people with that. But we can't say because we don't know all the facts. But I think the two institutions could work together in terms of trying to actually find out exactly what actually happened in relation to that particular issue. Because if it's on the basis of disability or on the basis of gender, and the two institutions could actually deal with that particular issue. And I hope our courts are going to assist us to actually follow up on this particular matter.
Okay, but then in the area that she's calling from, in Moto, is there a particular place that you can refer her to?
I think we'll call these offices and they can call her back, and we can find a way of actually making sure that the complaint is lodged with the two offices.
But that's definitely unfair discrimination, right?
On the face of it is really a case of discrimination.
Right. Okay, there we go. All right, it's got 3 minutes after 7 o'clock. I think we're going to wrap it up. But before I do that, there's been a question that I've been hanging for quite a bit. In fact, I've just mentioned it now. We're talking about unfair discrimination. And maybe I was just wondering, and maybe you're wondering as well, that when we're saying unfair discrimination, is there any other form of discrimination that is allowed? Because when I was reading up on this, it was saying that it is important to know that the Act does not prohibit discrimination, but unfair discrimination. Do you want to maybe just dissect that for us, there, DM?
If you restrict, if you're applying for a job, or if you're advertising a job, and you say that people who don't have a particular level of qualification or a particular number of years experience cannot apply for that job, that's discrimination, but I would argue it's not unfair. Okay, it's a particular kind of job. You want people with particular skills, so you can impose that. So yes, there's lots of discrimination. You may say that a person over a particular age at a gym, or let's say, no, let me put it this way: a person at a gym under a particular age can't make use of certain equipment, because maybe they're a child and they're not, their body's not sufficiently developed.
Sure.
That's discrimination. That's not unfair.
Mm-hmm.
Unfair is so there's lots of discrimination where we say that people that are older, people that are younger, even people that are disabled can't get particular jobs. In the case of disabled, I mean, if you were, let's just say, if you're a manual worker, particularly using your limbs, and you don't have all those limbs, or they're not in good working order, then it may be correct to say that a person can't apply for that job. So unfair is where it's not fair. It's not a fair discrimination.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody from a racial perspective, one of the callers mentioned, everybody should get paid the same for the same amount of work done, regardless, particularly in the two areas of discrimination, regardless of their race, regardless of their gender.
Mm-hmm.
If a man gets paid more for the same work that a woman is doing, that's unfair.
Right. All right, there we go. And that's how we wrap it up for this evening, bringing us to exactly 6 minutes after the hour, 7 o'clock. Thank you so much for having listened in on this first show of 2016. Let's Talk Justice, Live Your Rights, courtesy of the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. Let me say thank you so much to Deputy Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development, Deputy Minister John Jeffrey. Thank you so much for your time, sir.
Thanks very much for having me.
Chairperson of the South African Human Rights Commission, Advocate Mabele Lawrence Moshwana. Let me say thank you to you as well, sir.
Thank you very much for calling us once again.
And last but not least, Chairperson of the Commission for Gender Equality, Mr. Mfano Zelwe Shozi. Thank you so much, sir, for coming in. That's the best way to end it. All right, there we go. That's not unfair discrimination, I'm just saying, you know. All right, that's how we wrap it up. From myself, Karabalans, let me say thank you so much for having listened through. Thank you to all the radio stations who've partnered with us this evening. Let's meet again next week, shall we? Next week, Thursday, is going to be our third last broadcast of, and I can see my social media producer is not, when I say this, she's not happy. we'll talk. Maybe we might add another 5 or 6 of these programs. Who knows? But let's meet again next week, Thursday, on Let's Talk Justice, Live Your Rights. From myself, Karabolans, Stolana Saba, Pedil Matebele, Grata Gore, Ebale Bushiro, Yobo Botsi.